Thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much, Dharmendra Prabhu, and thank you to all the devotees who have made it here this evening to hear from Bhagavatam and continue to do that every week. This is glorious, as we know, Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. This is the best service, hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are very grateful to be asked to be here and serve in some small way. And also very delighted to be with all you. And yes, just a big congratulations and acknowledgement to you, Dharmendra Prabhu, for your steadiness over so many years. Really incredible. So thank you very much for this. It's greatly appreciated by so many devotees. And we're very, very happy that you're able to continue and do this service. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So I have been asked to speak on the 19th chapter of the 8th canto. Can you hear me all right? I just do a little sound check. Things are okay? All right. So, thank you, Deepak. So we'll attempt to speak a little something and also try to invoke some conversation, some reflections, some insights, and some dialogue with the devotees here to keep it lively. So before I begin, I would like to recite some prayers. These prayers are there in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, known as the Mangal Acharanam prayers, and they're prayers for invoking auspiciousness. Mother Jamuna shared with us once. We were very fortunate enough to be in her Sangha and her association, that Srila Prabhupada made a statement that if you chant these prayers with a sincere heart, then Krishna will hear you and he will help you. So whenever I chant them, I always try to remember this, mainly because I need a lot of help and I don't have such a sincere heart, but I guess if I keep trying, then eventually one day something might happen. So if you know these prayers, you can please remain on mute and join in. Otherwise, you can just meditate on the transcendental sound vibration. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Zadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We can all chant together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So please let us remember His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, by whose mercy, and only for most of us, maybe even all of us, by His mercy only are we able to really, truly, and sincerely dive deep into the Srimad Bhagavatam, or into Krishna consciousness, really in its purest essence, into the path of Uttama Bhakti, pure devotional service, as delineated by His divine grace, coming in disciplic succession in a parampara that leads back to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose appearance day it will be in roughly about 2 weeks, something like that. So we are extremely blessed, honored, fortunate to be able to even read the Bhagavatam and speak from the Bhagavatam. And of course, anything that we say is simply the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, because otherwise, only by the mercy of Vaishnavas is anything possible. And Srila Prabhupada being the most exalted of all Vaishnavas, spreading the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami around the globe, and giving it to so many fallen conditioned souls like myself, allowing us an opportunity to actually become extremely fortunate. So in this way, feeling extremely blessed and very fortunate. So very grateful to Srila Prabhupada, very grateful to my own spiritual master. Also, this being the 60th anniversary year of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. What a glorious year, 1966. Also at the moment having the amazing opportunity and great fortune to be serving in 26 Second Avenue, Matchless Gifts, in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Now that I'm based here in New York, we were literally just there earlier today, greeting guests, welcoming people to come to that beautiful space, to that holy tirtha, to that dham, where Srila Prabhupada arrived with simply 3 volumes of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And once he had completed those, he felt that he had enough to actually come to the West, to give something, to offer something to the world. So how blessed we are to really have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada, the pure emissary, the pure devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada is known as the Senapati Bhakta. He is the commander-in-chief of Lord Chaitanya's army. And Lord Chaitanya specifically sent him to spread this message all over the entire world. So like that, we're feeling very, very fortunate and very honored. And so Srila Prabhupada's purports are amazing and glorious. And every time I'm asked to speak here, I become completely bewildered, because I think we need at least 3 to 4 hours to really truly dive into an entire chapter. And how much nectar is there, how many powerful points are spoken. So there is no way that in one session of an hour that we'll be able to truly unpack all that's there. And I think some of you may be familiar with the fact that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he set the example of how ever fresh the Bhagavatam is. I think it was at one stage he was reading the same verse and purport from the Srimad Bhagavatam every day for like 30 days. And it's described that never did he repeat or get caught up in the repetition of what appeared to be the same old topic. Instead, he was perpetually speaking fresh, new insights from the Bhagavatam. So like that. And that's just one verse in purport. What to speak of a chapter with, what is it, 46, I think, 46 verses, 43 verses. So all glories to all of you. And I see only a few people on camera, but I see a very good friend, Nelly. Lovely to see you. Hare Krishna, thank you for being there. Thank you, Jay, for turning on your camera. It's always good to see human beings and not boxes with names. It becomes a little more inspiring. Okay, so we're going to share a screen. Someone has said is their first time here. So welcome to you, Dipto Sarkar. It's a great honor to have you here. We hope that you are willing and able to dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam with us this evening. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Please bear with me while I do things. Okay, wait a minute. Something has gone. Okay, let me try again. My apologies. Where did that go? Okay. All right. Let's try advanced. There we go. Aha, okay. There we go. All right. Can you see that all right? Dharmendra Prabhu? All right, great. Okay, so this is an exciting chapter. Every chapter of the Bhagavatam is exciting, but for the eighth canto, and especially the pastime of Lord Vāmanadeva, this is, in one sense, you could say, the chapter to be reading, because it sort of more or less covers one of the most pivotal, powerful, and potent sections of this canto, or it's at least this pastime in this canto, the pastime of Vāmanadeva, and Trivikram, Tripad, so many different names for Lord Vāmanadeva, who is a young Brahmana. He is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a Leela avatar, who specifically comes. I mean, we have to be honest. He's basically come here to cheat someone out of their property. So this is Krishna. This is the Supreme Lord. He's willing to do whatever it takes to manifest the ends that he sees fit. And to that end, you can see he is a very attractive young brahmachari. He is known as the dwarf incarnation. In this scene, you can see that he's got his one foot on the Lord, one foot through the upper planetary systems where Lord Brahma is pouring water onto his lotus feet. Vāmanadeva is the origin, or not the origin of, but he is the cause, you could say, of the Ganga entering into this material world. So the next time you're bathing in Sri Ganga, I have some friends in Sridham Mayapur at the moment, and they were just bathing, sharing about their bathing. So the next time we're bathing in the Ganga, in the Ganges, we can remember Lord Vāmanadeva and his responsibility for that. And then the last foot we see is here on the head of Bali Mahārāja. So in this chapter, we're going to read a lot and hear a lot about Bali Mahārāja, his mood, his lineage. We're also going to hear about his advisor, his minister, Shukracharya, And like that, there's so many different aspects. So we're going to enter into this. A general overview is the request by Lord Vāmanadeva for charity. Specifically, he asks only for 3 paces of land, which is for someone who is a dwarf or someone who is small, just a small brahmachari boy. To ask for 3 paces of land seems hardly a serious request, yet that's what he asks. Bali Maharaj agrees to the proposal. And then finally, Shukracharya, his minister or his Brahminical advisor, forbids Bali Maharaj to fulfill the request. So these 3 powerful things are going to be discussed today. And we are going to look at first Bali Maharaj's generous offer. So first of all, we understand that Bali Maharaj mistakes Vāmanadeva for Brahmana's son. In one sense, it's not so much of a mistake because the Lord has disguised himself as such. He has presented himself as a Brahmana's son, as a dwarf or a brahmachari who has entered into his kingdom. And he is so attractive that actually Bali Maharaj, who himself at heart has very deep devotional sentiments and coming in a lineage of, in one sense, great personalities, but still yet Bali Maharaj is the king of the Daityas. He is the king of the demons. And so this is a dichotomy that is very, very difficult for most of us to understand and really connect with. How is it that Bali Maharaj, who is also one of the Mahājans, he is one of the great personalities, the 12 great personalities that we as Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but Vaishnavas on the whole follow after these 12 Mahājans, these 12 great souls. And Bali Maharaj is one of them, and he is known as one because of his absolute surrender. Atmanivedanam, his complete surrender to the Lord. And this is the pastime where often the pastimes with the Lord, there's always someone who offsets the Lord. And the Lord is offset in general by a demon. And usually the demon winds up dead. Killed by the Lord in whatever incarnation that may be. But in this instance, this is one of the rare pastimes where the Lord interacts with an adversary, a demon, and actually the end result is that the demon becomes glorified as one of the greatest devotees. So very interesting situation. So Bali Maharaj, being the king of the demons, but also we have to remember that even the demons are getting their tejas or their potency because of following scriptural injunctions to some extent. Now, when I say that to some extent, it means that they follow certain things. In the case of Hiranyakashipu, he performed immense austerity. So the principle of austerity is, in one sense, a shastric injunction. It's understood that if you perform austerities, then you will become the recipient of some rewards. Now, on a pure platform, we don't perform austerities for any reward. We perform austerities for the pleasure of the Lord. But the performance of austerities can also be done in a rajasic mood, in a mood of wanting to get something in return, and one can receive those. So in the same way, Bali Maharaj, driven by scriptural injunctions, led by Shukracharya, who is a descendant of Bhrigu Muni, coming in that lineage, he knows the importance of giving charity first and foremost, and especially giving charity to the brahmanas, to those who are religious persons. So first thing that kind of happens here is that Vāmanadeva begins praising Bali's heroic lineage. And if you're not aware of who Bali Maharaj is, it is such a beautiful way that we have Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has incarnated as Vāmanadeva, speaking to Bali Mahārāja, who is the current king of the demons, and he begins to glorify his ancestors and his lineage. And when he's doing this, we have to remember that Krishna is Vishnu, and he is the person who incarnated as different avatars or manifestations in order to actually, in most cases, kill those members of Bali Maharaja's lineage. So in the 10th verse, I think it is, then Vāmanadeva, who is describing the lineage of, glorifying the lineage of Bali Mahārāja. Now, before I get into the specifics of the lineage, let me remind you that also we have to remember that what Lord Vāmanadeva is doing here is he is sweetening up Bali Mahārāja also, okay? So he's Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great acharya in our lineage. There's a verse that he would recite, and Prabhupada quoted this verse when talking to devotees who do book distribution. And he describes that if you want to get something from someone, then you first have to glorify them. So then he explains that you go to the person and you say, "My dear sir, you are such an intelligent person, such a competent man, so advanced, so scholarly, so knowledgeable. You know, you're clearly, highly intellectual in so many ways." And the man's, with each word, puffed up, puffing up more, puffing up that false pride, that false ego. And then he says, and then Bodhananda Saraswati Thakur says, "But you should forget everything that you know. And you should surrender to Krishna." And Prabhupada adds, "And you should give me your wallet." So in this way, basically, you should hand over everything to the service of the Lord and stop being so puffed up. Which, interestingly enough, is exactly what Vāmanadeva does. So Bodhananda Saraswati probably got his inspiration from this pastime. So we have to remember that Vāmanadeva here is speaking sweetly, nicely. He doesn't roll into the assembly, into the kingdom saying, "I'm God, I came as a dwarf, I'm here to take everything away from you." No, none of that stuff. He comes in sweet, soft. There's a saying Srila Prabhupada used to say that we go in like a needle and out like a plow. We go in very refined, microscopic, you can hardly see it. But then when we come out, boom, life is changed, which is probably why sometimes when devotees meet, or when people meet devotees on the street, I know when I first interacting with devotees, I felt like, I've got a feeling if I hang out with these people for very long, my life will never be the same again. And basically, that's what happened. And many people used to tell how they would walk by the doors of the temple when we were serving at Soho Street. And they said, but for years, I couldn't come in. I would look through that glass door and I would think, if I walk through the threshold, my life will never be the same again. So like that, in like a needle and boom, out like a plow. It just changes everything. So Vāmanadeva is doing this. Now he's glorifying Bali Maharaja's lineage. And he explains that it is not that Lord Vishnu was afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Rather, because of compassion, Lord Vishnu was in anxiety about how to act for his welfare. Now, where does this come from? It comes from a section where Vāmanadeva has been describing the glories of Bali Maharaja's lineage, saying that all of your forefathers, they all gave charity and none of them were afraid to fight because they were proper Kshatriyas. And then he glorifies Hiranyaksha and tells how Hiranyaksha was going around with his mace, ready to kill anyone and everyone, ready to, if anyone would offer him a fight, he would enter into that fight and he would never refuse to give charity. And he said, but, anyway, Vishnu came along and, killed him. he kind of smooths over that. Then he says, and his brother, your father, Hiranyakashipu, was such a great, stalwart, staunch personality, glorifying Hiranyakashipu. I mean, when I'm reading this, I'm thinking, this is Krishna himself who killed Hiranyakashipu, and here he is glorifying him. And then he talks about, Vāmanadeva talks about how Vishnu actually basically was concerned for Hiranyakashipu, who was so angry, always angry. And it describes that actually he was angry until death. And Prabhupada, in one of the purports, explains that most people are just angry for a short time. Now, of course, we all know that we can hold grudges for many years and stay angry about things for a long time. But it describes that Hiranyakashipu was holding on to this immense anger right up to the point of death. And I love it because the Bhagavatam, with every verse, it opens a portal. It opens a window into a completely different pastime. And it's so amazing how Krishna, as Lord Vāmanadeva, is revealing this other pastime from almost a different angle or perspective about how he, as Vishnu, was actually concerned for Hiranyakashipu. And it describes that actually he entered through the nostrils and into the inside. He actually entered into Hiranyakashipu. Now, this I found very intriguing, and I wanted to spend hours absorbing myself in and understanding this, which unfortunately I didn't have so much time to do. But he entered into, and of course, Prabhupada explains that the Lord is already in the heart of every living entity, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, that he's already situated in the heart of everyone. So it's not so difficult for him to enter into even the heart of a demon such as Hiranyakashipu. Then Vamana starts talking. He doesn't really tell the story or the pastime of how Hiranyakashipu was killed, but he kind of implies that he also passed. Then he moves on to Vilochan, who is the father of Prahlad, or he goes on to Prahlad Maharaj. Doesn't really speak so much about Prahlad Maharaj, but then goes on to Vilochan, who is the father of Bali Maharaj. And I think earlier I said that Hiranyakashipu was the father of Bali Maharaj. Please forgive me, that wasn't correct. But Vilochan is the father of Bali Maharaj. And so Vilochan also, there was another pastime with Vilochan and the Lord, where the Lord kind of tried to usurp things from him, and he also gave in charity. So all of this building up to the point where basically what Vāmanadeva is trying to do is encourage Bali Maharaj to be a good king, and that means to give charity. So all of this, he's praising his entire lineage. Um, and it's, let's see. Yeah, then he eventually makes a request. Yeah, he requests, he says, I'm happy to give you anything. And then he says, I'm happy to even give you an island. Now, of course, in the news these days, there's lots of talk about an island. We don't want to get into that talk and that conversation, but Bali Maharaj offers an island to to Vāmanadeva. And it's interesting because if you just read the verse, then you think, oh, I offered him an island. Ooh, that's pretty amazing, to get an island. I remember when I was young, we would think, oh, if we could get an island, we had all these ideas of what we do on our island. But actually, the island that he's talking about, the Dweepa, is one of the planets that are floating on the causal ocean. And it's described that there are, I guess you could say, well, it mentions 7 in the purport there, I believe. And these different islands, because Bali Maharaj is the controller of all the planetary systems. He's not just controlling the Earth, he's controlling the entire universe. And therefore, he says, I have islands, unlimited islands at my disposal, and I'm ready to give you one of those. But all Bali Maharaj, or all Vāmanadeva wanted, all he was asking for was simply 3 paces of land. And he goes into some very, or Prabhupada goes into some very deep purports based on what Vāmanadeva says. And he discusses a principle that I think is really important for us to look at, which is extravagance versus satisfaction. So because all of these pastimes, of course, should teach us some lesson. So I'm going to read the purport to text number 17. So I'll read the verse as well so we get the context. It says, O king, controller of the entire universe. So this is Vāmanadeva speaking to Bali. Although you are very munificent and are able to give me as much land as I want, I do not want anything from you that is unnecessary. This is a really important point. Unnecessary. And we have to remember, unnecessary, or what is necessary for one person, will not be the same as what's necessary for another person. This is a big mistake that we often make in trying to ascertain. We think that what's necessary for everyone is the same, or whatever is necessary for me should be applied to everyone else. But that's just not the case. It's not a fact. It is not the truth. The truth is that what is necessary for one will be different for what is necessary for another. So anyway, the point being, anything that is unnecessary. If a learned Brahmana takes charity from others only according to his needs, he does not become entangled in sinful activities. So a message out there to all those Brahmanas. If you are taking donations, begging charity, the best place to deposit those is in Krishna's bank account, not in your own bank account. But to the extent that we need to maintain ourselves as far as necessary, then no problem. But not, as Prabhupada would say, but not a farthing more, so like that. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada goes into depth about this. And he says a Brahmin or sannyasi is qualified to ask charity from others, but if he takes more than necessary, he's punishable. No one can use more of the Supreme Lord's property than necessary. Lord Vāmanadeva indirectly indicated to Bali Mahārāja that he was occupying more land than he needed. So this is an important point, that what Bali Mahārāja is trying to say is, I only need 3 paces of land. Why do you have so many islands? Why do you have so much opulence? This is actually more than what you probably require. So it says, in material world, all distresses are due to extravagance. That's why this word is pulled out here, extravagance. We often become obsessed with being extravagant in some way. One acquires money extravagantly and also spends it extravagantly. Such activities are sinful. All property belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all living beings who are sons of the Supreme Lord have the right to use the Supreme Father's property. So right there is very powerful. Basically, we all have the right to use Krishna's property, to use his property, to sustain ourselves. But we're not entitled to take more than we require. Then we enter into one of the gates of hell, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, which is lobh, which is greed. So like that, we have to be very careful. The principle should especially be followed by Brahmanas and sannyasis who live at the cost of others. Thus, Vāmanadeva was an ideal beggar, for he asked only 3 paces of land. Of course, there is a difference between his footsteps and those of an ordinary human being. So there you go, that definitive point that I made at the beginning, that it will be different for each person. So what 3 steps of land would be for us and what 3 steps of land is for the Lord is different. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable prowess, can occupy the entire universe, including the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems, by the unlimited measurement of his footsteps. So that is very, very powerful. Now, if we move to text 21, and I would just try to read some of the purport here. That's it. Yes. 21. So in text 21, it discusses the principle of satisfaction. Oh yeah, it's very, very end. So Prabhupada says, in the human society, therefore, the Brahminical culture, Kshatriya culture, and Vaishya culture must be maintained, and people must be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. This is a big lesson for all of us. to just be satisfied with what we need and not hanker um, uh, for more and more and more. This is this driving force within everyone. If you earn 1 million, then you want to be a multimillionaire. If you earn multi-millions, you want to be a billionaire. A pauper is proud of his penny, always searching after what's next, what's next. I want more, I want more. Ani yor, ani yor. But that's, Krishna can say ani yor because he wants more of our love and devotion, more of our offerings. We just want more for our own personal gratification. So Prabhupada continues. And people must be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. In modern civilization, there is no such education. Everyone tries to possess more and more, and everyone is dissatisfied and unhappy. Nishochati nakangshati. So like that. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore establishing various farms, especially in America, to show how to be happy and content with minimum necessities of life and to save time for self-realization, which one can very easily achieve by chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this point, Srila Prabhupada discussing on extravagance versus satisfaction. And we see that actually Prabhupada, in starting farm communities, was actually really trying to create a space where people could live simple. And this principle Prabhupada gave us, which is simple living and high thinking, which means it doesn't mean you have to live on a farm to live simply. That's not the case. But Prabhupada was seeing that living in the city is a high-paced, fast life, so many things, so many allurements. A farm, that space out in the country is more mode of goodness. And actually, we were just last weekend, in fact, in Gitanagari. We went there to pick up milk for the Bhakti Center and got to spend some time with some beautiful devotees there and just feeling like, wow, this is it. Prabhupada wanted to go to Gitanagari, his last trip out of India to come to the West, literally on his deathbed, on his passing bed, his departing bed, on his final days. His desire was to go to the West, to go to Gitanagari, and to start and show how Varnashram could be established. So material existence, this is text 25. I think it's just important because it relates to the same topic. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lusty desires and achieving more and more money. This is the cause of the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from this material existence. So again, extravagance versus satisfaction. Let us desire and seek to try and find a place where we can just be satisfied with what we have, with what Krishna has given us. Now, does it mean that we give up a propensity to strive for more, or like Prabhupada said, his one disease was that he couldn't think small. Now, one might think, oh, okay, so Prabhupada couldn't think small, so I also don't want to think small. I don't want to just earn 100,000. I want to earn 500,000. I want to earn 2 million. No, Prabhupada's thinking small couldn't think small and wanted to do something big was in terms of what he wanted to offer to Krishna. So we should certainly engage our propensity for always striving to do more, to offer better, to offer higher quality in so many ways for Krishna. Now, the last point here is that Bali Mahārāja agrees. So Bali Mahārāja in text 28, he says that when the Supreme Personality Godhead had thus spoken to Bali Mahārāja, Bali smiled and told him, all right, take whatever you like. These may be dangerous words to say to Krishna. And of course, we all know, and in here, later Shukracharya, he uses the term Hari. And we understand that this term Hari means that one who takes away. And Prabhupada explains very amazingly in the purport, we'll also discuss that. But to take whatever you like. This is the mood of surrender. This is the mood of absolute surrender, Atmanivedanam, that which Bali Maharaj is most well known for. So Shukracharya is watching this situation unfold. And he is the advisor of Bali Maharaj. He's the, you could say, the prime minister. And he is the person who is giving guidance, in one sense you could say dharmic kind of guidance, or based on scripture, but maybe in a dark mode, you could say. So Shukracharya is giving the wise counselor's warning. And he recognizes immediately that Vāmanadeva is Vishnu. And he's a friend of the demigods. And, you know, the whole backstory and pastime here, we don't have time to get into it, but the whole, you know, backstory is that finally the demons are in charge. Finally, the demons are at the top of the hill. They have defeated the demigods. But whenever you get something, there's always a danger or a fear of losing it. So Shukracharya is now the minister to the king of the entire universe, and he doesn't want to lose that position. And of course, he wants to help Bali Maharaj to understand that Bali Maharaj also shouldn't want to lose that position. But it's described that Shukracharya is also personally motivated. So he begins to describe different things, which shows the actual great potency of Shukracharya, because he has the vision to be able to see the past, know the present, and also see the future. He begins to explain so many different things that could happen. He warns Bali Maharaj that his promise could cost him the entire kingdom. He explains things that may come to pass. Actually, in the purport to text 32, let me see if I can get to that rather quickly. And text 32, yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this purport. Let me read the verse. So this is Shukracharya speaking. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're getting there. Shukracharya is speaking. This person, falsely appearing as a brahmachari, is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. And after taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a really wonderful purport there. It's a little long. Maybe I won't read it all, but just some of it. He says, in this regard, the very word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty, as stated in the Bhagavatam 1088:8. Yashaham anugranami harisyeta dhanam shanai. The Lord said to Mahārāja Yudhisthira, the first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. Ah! Oh no! Oh no! I think a few people just dropped off the call, Dharmendra Prabhu. I'm really sorry about that. Anyway, these are the facts as spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, you know, he thought he was going to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world because he was becoming very wealthy. He was a very successful businessman. And then he thought, that's how I'm going to open 108 temples. It was predicted that Srila Prabhupada would open 108 temples globally. And then what happened is Krishna just started taking stuff away from him. And he thought, I just didn't know what was happening. I couldn't believe, how am I going to fulfill the prophecy of what it's understood that I'm meant to do if I don't have any money? But it seemed like Krishna was taking everything away from him and basically made him almost like a complete pauper, to the point where he was living, you know, hand to mouth, day in and day out for so many years, in the holy Dhamma Vrindavan, in, the Radha Damodar temple, working so hard. But actually, in one sense, from a material perspective, he was so poor, literally poverty stricken. Took sannyas means he completely abandoned family, like everything. And so Prabhupada said Krishna just took everything away. Then eventually he came on the Jaladuta, he came to the West, he struggled for so long. And then later Prabhupada said, first he took everything away and he tested me like that by taking everything just to see if I was serious and sincere about continuing to serve him and worship him with all my mind, my body, and my words. Then the second test was that he gave me everything. And he also wanted to see what I continued to worship him with all my mind, my body, and my words. And of course, Prabhupada did, in both instances, pass the test. But we see Krishna takes away the material, then he gives us everything when he sees that we can use it in Krishna's service. Yukta Vairagya. We were listening to a lecture last night, or memories last night, of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because it was his disappearance day yesterday, his Tirubab. And he was saying, he made the comment that Srila Prabhupada told him once that, Krishna, he can give you the entire United States, he can give you the entire planet. But first, you need to know how to engage it. You need to know how to use it, meaning that you need to understand it's his anyway. You just engage it in his service. Anyway, there's so many, like I said, we could go on for hours. So many wonderful, beautiful points. So then Shukracharya advises Bali, basically, you need to revoke this promise. And then he gets into a whole conversation with him, basically about how to lie, how to get out of something once you get yourself in a mess, how to kind of cheat your way out of it. And he's quoting Shastra and he's quoting things. And this made me think that, yes, of course, and been with devotees at different times, when you pull out this shloka when you want to get this result, and you pull out another shloka when you want to get that result. And depending on what you want or who you want to convince or how you want to move forward in a certain circle, you'll quote different things. And we hear, I mean, there's disputes, unfortunately, even within our own society, our own community. And on one side, people are fighting with these shlokas, and on the other side, people are throwing back different shlokas, and it's just like a shloka fest. It's like everyone chanting this verse, that statement, this pramanam, that thing, all trying to prove their point. Meanwhile, what is the point? The point is that we should be trying to please Krishna ultimately. And is Krishna pleased by all of this basically bickering and arguing? It's pointless. But here, Bali Maharaj is kind of doing the same thing. And in a purport there, Srila Prabhupada says, this is the difference between a Vaishnava and a Smarta Brahmana. And that's a really powerful point, this Smarta mentality of kind of those who are born in the lineage of Brahmanas, that think that they understand and know everything just by the rule and the regulation. And a Vaishnava who understands the heart of the matter, the heart of the Lord, and how things need to be applied. And Prabhupada would often say that he basically had to leave India because there was so much, everyone thought they knew everything already, and he couldn't teach anyone anything. And so when he came to the West, he found this blank slate of different personalities, and he was able to imbibe a certain culture and mentality. Now, of course, he also had to adapt certain things to the time, place, and circumstance. But at the same time, as Prabhupada said, and we just heard one quote recently in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it is, Srila Prabhupada states that those people who criticize, the fact that we've made malechas and yavanas into brahmanas, or that we're allowing men and women to mix together, they will just have to be happy with their own foolishness, because they don't understand what it takes to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Now, whose word do we take in this situation? The person who actually fulfilled the desire of Lord Chaitanya and his spiritual master, or those who basically didn't? So like that. Anyway, sometimes we just want to be right. That's the bottom line. But Prabhupada says a smarta Brahmana is always interested in material profit, whereas a Vaishnava is interested only in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From the statement of Shukracharya, it appears that he was in all respects a smarta Brahmana, interested only in personal gain. And basically, Bali Mahārāja expresses that he also knows that in the future, what's going to happen is, with one step, he's going to take over the entire, the entire planet. Then the second step, the entire, universe. And then you won't have anything left to give him for a third step. So you're not even going to be able to fulfill your promise to him. So like that. So then Shukracharya starts to explain when promises can be withdrawn, in subduing others, in joking, responding to danger, acting for others' welfare. So he gives a long list, and there are some amazing purports there that actually show interesting shastric divisions. One specifically shows a shastric division for Lakshmi, which we know that Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction tells us this is the formula for how to deal with your wealth. 50% to the, 50%, 25%, 50% to the Krishna conscious movement, 25% to family and friends, and 25% for one's own welfare, looking after oneself. That's how one should divide one's wealth. In the Bhagavatam, in this section, it was interesting how it was divided into 5 divisions. And that was 1 part for religion, 1 part for reputation, 1 part for opulence, 1 part for sense gratification, and 1 part to maintain the members of his family. And so Prabhupada says, at the present, however, because people are bereft of all knowledge, they spend all their money for the satisfaction of their family. So like that. Anyway, beautiful purports. Moving on to this end kind of point, which is that there's a big moral and philosophical conflict. Again, not uncommon. These things are still going on. Moral and philosophical conflict. So Bali's desire is to honor his word. I gave my word to a Brahmana, and I intend to fulfill that. And he's almost bewildered, and this will become more apparent in the next chapter. Why are you actually trying to instruct me not to fulfill on my word? And so we see that someone who is deceitful or deceiving, deceitful, they kind of, their colors will be shown as the story goes. So then Shukracharya's strategic counsel is to avoid loss. Ultimately, Shukracharya he just wants to protect himself. It's very unfortunate, but he's just trying to look after himself. He's not thinking about the greater picture. And to that end, he's quoting shloka after shloka just to get what he wants, and to not really for the purpose of the higher aim or the higher goal of pleasing the Supreme Lord. And then that creates a tension between dharma and practical wisdom. So again, I just go back to the fact that Srila Prabhupada was so expert, and he coined this phrase that it's old wine in a new bottle. He says it's the same knowledge, the same instructions that have been passed down generation after generation. Just we have to present it in a new bottle so that people will be attracted to it and want to take it. So he also used the term, first we have to dress, then address. So first you have to look the part, you have to be appealing and pleasing to people. He wasn't into devotees looking tatty and, disheveled. He wanted people to look pukka and proper. And then they would get the audience with people who could hear and listen. So I think we're coming straight to the end here. So we have some time for reflections, questions, chastisements, corrections, whatever it is that you may have. So, like I said, there were many, many points we could have unpacked there, and I'm sorry I talked very quick, and I hope I didn't lose you all. Some of you were along for the ride. So nice to have you, those who joined a little late. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Okay, Shakti Prabhu, would you like to ask your question? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pranams. Thank you so much. This is such an exciting chapter. There's so many paralleled and not parallel points that you can kind of delve into. And one of the things that was really striking me was I think it's literally in one of the earlier verses, the language that Bali Maharaj is using, it seems to allude that he's viewing the situation through the perspective of gain and loss. His language when he said, like, I'm sure there was a text earlier that where he's kind of saying to Vāmanadeva, "Hey, you're really unintelligent because you could ask for anything, and you're just
Yeah,
asking for 3 paces. Like, are you crazy? What's up?"
yeah,
And you can see that sort of sense of like, dude, you can get more. Like the gain can be so much. This is your chance, right? You've got a blank check. Ask for as much as you want. And so I find that really striking that that's how I interpreted it, which could be completely wrong. But yet he's a Mahajan and he's praised as such a, like you said at the start, Atman Nivedanam, he's surrendered everything. But yet there's this duality in my mind thinking, but at the same time, he's got this sort of weighing up the scales of loss and gain inside. You can see elements of that coming through. So I don't know what to think of it and how to kind of digest my thoughts around that.
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up, Shakti Prabhu. Yes. So, Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan, and we have to understand also that all the Mahajans, if you go through the stories of their lives, including the 13th Mahajan, we would say is Srila Prabhupada, that all of them, even I just told the story how Prabhupada thought that by gaining money, by becoming rich, that's how he was going to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So all of the Mahajans, each of them have a story that sort of depict and show how they had a transformation in their life. And that story is very instructive for us. So in that same way, what we're seeing here now is the position that Bali Maharaj is in. Now, remember, Bali Maharaj is the king of the demons. I mean, that's a complete dichotomy in itself, just that a Mahajan is the king of the demons. Prahlad Maharaj, his grandfather is also, was the king of the demons, but also still considered a great personality that, we look to and read his instructions over and over again. So in one sense, I would say it goes as a testimony to the fact that it does not matter our sort of position, our material positioning in the material world. That is not the way we assess or judge by someone's greatness. We may think that just, oh, someone is a very poor Brahmana, so they must be great, whereas this rich businessman, he's not so great. And there are many stories that we could tell around that. Ramanujacharya, I recently, in one of my posts, I was sharing about this. Someone asked, but Ramanujacharya, he tested his own disciples. He had some very wealthy Grihastha disciples. You may know the story. And then he had his renunciant sannyasi disciples, and he tested both of them. And the rich Grihasthas were prepared to give all their jewels to the mat, to Ramanuja if he needed them. Whereas when he stole the kopins, the underwear and the gumshoes from the brahmacharis and the sannyasis, they started bickering and fighting over each other, fighting over scraps of cloth. So it's not so easy to determine the depth of someone's devotion simply by an external display. But in this situation, Bali Maharaj is specifically showing that, yes, he was influenced at that time by that perspective. And he was thinking, I am the king. We have just defeated the demigods, and now I am the ruler. And this young Brahmin has come before me, so let me show him my mercy. So, of course, he's definitely in that space. But what comes to transpire through this situation, through the intervention of the Lord, is a sincere, deep transformation of the heart that starts with the fact that he just is willing to give him these 3 paces of land. And just that little commitment to the principles of Dharma in the beginning are what cause a complete transformation, which is why he becomes known as the Acharya, or the representative of Atmanivedanam, or complete surrender, because he gives all of his land, he gives the entire universe, and then he ultimately gives his own self up to the Lord. So you're right. It's such a great point. I'm so happy that you brought that up. Thank you, Shakti, and thank you for reading the Bhagavatam with such depth of intuition and sincerity of like investigating and looking and trying to understand. This is great. Thank you.
No,
I don't know if what I
thank you so
said
much.
made, I
Yeah,
don't know if that
it is.
made any
It's
sense.
such an interesting topic, and yeah, it's definitely kind of explained it for me a bit clearer. It's one of those things I think you can just hear again and again to kind of get a deeper level of understanding every time. But yes,
Absolutely.
it's fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Janakanya Mataji, would you like to ask your question? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Janukanya Devi.
Haribo. I'm just a bit confused about if a demon. If you're a demon, you're a demon. How can you be?
Yes,
So
and thus
yeah,
we enter into the world of light and dark, black and white, yin and yang, right and wrong, and
but
the
I can
world of Krishna.
understand from a chanchala, you can become, you can develop purity and change. But a demon, I'm not really clear
But
about.
it's but a
Yeah.
chanchala is a demon, a malecha, yavana. Those are demoniac personalities. Externally, they're by the smarta brahmana class. They're out, oh God, what's it? Untouchables, they're outcasts. So like that. So then, how can an outcast become a Vaishnava, like the best, higher than a Brahmana? This has all been debated, and this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fought against this caste mentality and smarta mentality. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all of these. So the point is that. What is the King Chitraketu? King Chitraketu, he took birth as a demon simply because he laughed at Lord Shiva, and who had Parvati sitting on his lap, and he was cursed by Parvati, and he had to take birth as a demon, and then he had to fight with Indra, and he was encouraging Indra to kill him. I mean, we see this time and time again. Different things that happen where it's hard to tell. Even Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, these personalities are actually pure devotees. They're Jai and Vijay from the spiritual world. And so someone may be in the form or the guise of a demon. And of course, the Madhyama Adhikari platform, Srila Prabhupada in Scripture explains that we have to be able to recognize who is God, who is a devotee, who is neutral, and who is basically an atheist or a demoniac person. And some people are very demoniac, and it may be very difficult for them to understand their ultimate Jivara Swarupoi Krishnara Nichadas, their ultimate condition as a devotee. But Srila Prabhupada explained that most people are actually innocent, even if they're born in a demoniac classification of people. So like that. So here you have it, Prahlad Maharaj. He's great, isn't he? We glorify Prahlad Maharaj. But who was he? He was the son of a demon. And after his father was liberated by Lord Nrsingadev, then Lord Nrsingadev said, you should now become the king of the demons. It also goes to show the unbiased nature of God, of Krishna, of the Supreme Lord, that he's not just for the devotees. He declares that I give freely my love to anyone. He's in the heart of everybody. But how does that manifest? It manifests by someone having a willingness to accept it and embrace it, even if they're born in a family of dog eaters or born in a family of demons, like that. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I don't know if any of that made any sense.
Well, yeah, I'm just also wondering I don't understand why Vāmanadeva would want to take away everything from Bali Maharaj when he was a good person. Isn't that right?
Well, I mean,
wasn't Bali Maharaj a good person?
He wasn't at the time when I mean, he was a good person at heart, but at that time, just as Shakti was just mentioning, at that time he was playing a different role.
Hear.
Can you hear me?
The sound is gone.
Can everyone else hear me? Dharmendra, can you still hear me? Okay, I'm not sure what happened with you, Janukanya.
Sorry. Yeah, now I can hear you. Sorry.
Now you can hear me? Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it dropped off, but you said, was he a bad person? And he was playing the part of a bad person at that specific time when Vāmanadeva entered the situation, because he had just defeated the demons and basically tried to win, or sorry, he had just defeated the demigods and taken over the heavenly planets, and all the different, demigods were running hither and thither, and it was actually their mother, Aditi, who performed austerities in order to have Vāmanadeva as her son. So at that time, Bali Maharaj was actually acting more according to demoniac principles rather than devotional principles. So the entrance of Vāmanadeva, just like the entrance of Krishna in most of our lives, the entrance of the Maha Mantra, the entrance of Srila Prabhupada, is the transformational potency, or the transformational thing, the catalyst that helps us to move from our more demoniac mentality to a more devotional mentality. So the Lord personally intervened, and he helped to transform Bali Maharaj. And you'll see at the end that Bali Maharaj continued to reside on a heavenly planet of types. And actually the Lord himself, Upendra, continued to be in his personal association on that planet for the rest of his days. So actually he didn't lose anything. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna took everything away, but then he gave everything back in excess, kind of thing.
Yes, thank you. That's a good lesson to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janakanya Devi. Yeah, it's not easy to understand how a demon can be a devotee. But I'm here to testify. I'm a demon also, and somehow or other I'm still trying. Of course, sometimes demons can dress like devotees and still act like demons. So that's also there, unfortunately. And probably in my case. Sadhvi Didi.
Thank you.
My goodness, you're there in the morning at the Bhakti Center classes, and you're here everywhere I go. There you are. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much for tonight. For me, I see it in another way, because I actually see Bali Maharaj as a grandchild to Supreme Lord's incarnation, which was, he was incarnate as a Prahlad, right? Because Prahlad was, Vishnu needed I'm sorry. In Bhagavad Gita, I have read that where Krishna says, among the demons, I am Prahlad.
Yes.
So, and that's why I'm thinking, okay, when Krishna says among the demons, I am Prahlad, Bali Maharaj is a grandchild of Prahlad Maharaj, right? And I mean, those demons, those brothers, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakash, they both were really, really, how to say, good devotee, because they were doorkeeper to Lord Vishnu, right? So for me, I see it as, okay, this time around they got to play that role just for Krishna's enjoyment. This is what I see, you know. But my question is, in this situation, is something that I don't understand. Is verse 12? It says, even the ordinary living entity never take birth nor die. That I don't understand in purport. I don't understand what's that mean. And even further away, they said both the Lord and the living entity exist as a unborn and inexhaustible personalities. Yes. So what's that mean? If you could help me, please. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. First, I'd like to go back to the point about Prahlad. Prahlad Maharaj isn't an incarnation of the Lord, but I get you, and I think that's really beautiful and powerful how you pointed out that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you know, of the Daityas, I am Prahlad. Now, what we have to understand what Krishna is doing there in the Bhagavad Gita and these different chapters where he mentions of, you know, I am the light of the sun and the moon, I am the syllable Om, I am the taste of water. So he says, I'm the taste of water, but that doesn't necessarily mean a glass of water you can put on the altar and worship it as an incarnation of God, correct? What is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying, you can see me in my opulences. You can see me in everything because Krishna is in everything. But that doesn't, because he's in us also. He's in our heart. He's in every atom of the material energy. But what he's saying there is that when you think of the Daityas and you think of the demoniac class, well, Krishna is there because he's Prahlad. He's the man, you know, not that he is Prahlad. He also says, what was I thinking? He also says of fishes, I am the shark. So I don't think you're going to go out and start, you know, trying to worship a shark, you know. So he says many things, but the point he's making is that these are his opulences and these are ways that he's represented in the world. The pure heart of Prahlad means that Krishna is there, but he's not considered an incarnation of Krishna exactly, if that makes sense. He's not listed anywhere as an avatar of the Lord, like Vāmanadeva or even Prithu Maharaj or Kalki or Buddha or, you know, like that. So that's the first point. Now you came to this verse, which is verse 12. And this verse is, it mentions about the atheistic mentality and how they come to the conclusion that at death, everything is finished. Hiranyakashipu, being an atheist, thought this way, but because Lord Vishnu was not visible to him, he thought that the Lord was dead. Even today, many people follow the philosophy that God is dead, but God is never dead because God is eternal. But we're also eternal, right? Our souls are also eternal. God is Satchidananda Vigraha, and we're also Satchidananda. we're made of the same quality, which is the spiritual energy. So, and then Prabhupada quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, for the soul, he says, Najayate mriyate vakarachit. For the soul, there is never birth or death. So for the soul, actually, the soul hasn't been born, even though it comes into a body. The soul has just been manifested into a body. The soul was actually never born. We may describe that I took this birth, or I may take many births, but the soul itself actually is not born, because the soul is eternal, in the same way that the Lord is eternal. And then that last point, you said both the Lord and the living entity exist as unborn and inexhaustible, as stated in 4.6, which is Ajopi-san of Yayatma Bhutanam Ishwaropi-san Prakritim Swam Adistaya Sambhavam Yatma Mayaya. So this is the nature. We are also we are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means fully blissful. The Lord is Sat, Chit, Ananda Vigraha, and we are also his Sat, Chit, and Ananda parts and parcels. So the soul is eternal. It doesn't die. Even when the body dies, the soul doesn't die. When this body is born, it's not that the soul is being born. Does that make a little bit of sense or not?
Thank you.
I don't think it did, but you accepted, sort of, maybe because we're almost out of time. Thank you, Sadhvi Didi. Nice to see you. Dharmendra Prabhu.
Would it be okay if I asked you a couple of questions, if that's okay, Prabhu?
Sure.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll be able to answer them. I'm batting 0 for 3 here tonight. So anyway.
These are easy ones, Prabhu. At the start, you were saying that we shouldn't take more than what we need. So, do you not think that the Lord was giving Indra more than he needed afterwards? Because obviously, once he got everything, he gave it to Indra, and is that not giving everything? Is that not giving more than what Indra needed, really?
Well, this is what I was saying, that for every person, it will be uniquely different. And it's hard for us to, unless we're really omniscient in a realized state, it'd be hard for us to determine and decide what is needed for one and what is not needed for another. So Indra has a certain position. What is Indra's position?
He's the king of the demigods.
Well, he's the king of heaven. So he's the king of the demigods, and he has a very opulent position. He's not going to live by dint of his birth and position, he's destined to lead a lavish life, which means in order to, you might say, the fact that he possesses this thunderbolt that can destroy so many things, why does he need that? Well, a Brahmana living in the forest in a hut might not need it, but Indra, who's the king of heaven and has to lead the charge to fight against the demons, then that may be a requirement for him. As well as opulence. Indra has so many, he drinks to Somaras, has so many dancing girls, has so many opulent places to stay. So that's the life that he has. And so for him, it's not a problem. But if we're sitting here thinking, how come Indra has all of that? I want that. Then that might be a problem. If we want to come to the point where we receive the same opulences as Indra, then there's a process for doing that. So then we can come to the point where we're also qualified that that's not beyond our need. You know, like in Chaitanya Leela, Lord Chaitanya was reluctant to interact with King Prataparudra, who was the king of Orissa. But actually, King Prataparudra also had so much opulence, but in his heart, he was really a pure devotee. And he really wanted to have the darshan of the Lord. He was ready to give up his own life. So then one might say, now, of course, he had to take the guise of a sort of lowly cowherd boy, a sort of a simple person, to directly associate with Lord Chaitanya, but he didn't give up the kingdom. You understand? Same with Pundarik Vijayanidhi, very wealthy person. Shivananda Thain is also an extremely, extremely wealthy person, but he used so much of his funds for facilitating the Vaishnavas whenever they would go to Jagannath Puri. And actually, Lord Chaitanya instructed Shivananda Sain to look after Vasudev Dutt and help him to manage his finances. So there are different contexts for each and every person. So the thing is, we should think for myself, what is my situation and where's the point where I'm satisfied with what I have, yet I'm still striving to maintain that and keep things in a proper space without striving to get more than I actually know. Where's that point where my satisfaction is turning into extravagance and greed is starting to seep in? And that's what we really need to worry about is for ourselves, because it's really impossible for us to judge what is more or less for someone else. Because some people, as they say, are born with a proverbial silver spoon in their mouth. And if we weren't, then we may think, well, they're taking more than they deserve, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're taking exactly what they need, and that's okay. Maybe they are taking more. Still doesn't really have anything to do with me. Better I were about my own backyard and stop looking over the fence into other people's. Why don't you trim your bushes and mow your lawn? You know, like that. Instead, we should make sure our yard is taken care of and we deal with our own thing. And even for ourselves, it's not easy to know. You know, I've got 2 cars and I want a Ferrari. Is that too much? Maybe it's not. If Krishna sends somehow the opportunity to get a Ferrari, is that in and of itself bad? Maybe not necessarily. How I utilize that may be appropriate or inappropriate. I mean, Ambarish Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple, Henry Ford, you know, Alfred Ford, you know, the great grandson of Henry Ford. So imagine that, you know, he just, you know, didn't have the money that he has. You know, don't think that for a moment he hasn't had to continue business in order to help build the TOVP. He's had to continue to do what he's doing, and it's in his nature, it's in his karma, it's in his dharma to do that. But he's utilizing so much of his funds to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's mission. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but I don't have that type of money. And I also want to be very careful that I don't start to aspire to want to have that. Sometimes I think, oh God, if I just had like 100 million, you know, I used to think if I had 100 million, there were 2 things I would do: buy Barry Place and buy 26 Second Avenue and just make those places holy dham. So, but I didn't have to get like millions, and somehow Barry Place has now come into the property of ISKCON. So we're praying that also 26 Second Avenue manifests like that. But who's going to do that? Somebody had to have the money somewhere to make that happen. And it's a good thing they did. So they were hopefully not working outside of their means. Is that it's because it's not easy to judge or assess. Yeah. It's not like if you earn over 50,000, you're a greedy person. Someone might say, no, but I earn 100,000. Isn't that okay? You know, it's like, it's okay. Earn as much as you like. Just be careful that you're not becoming greedy and always wanting more, and that you're also giving 50% to the Krishna consciousness movement, according to Rupa Goswami. Then, anyway, sorry. What's your next question? And I probably just batted a 0 for 4 right there. But anyway,
no, that was perfect, Prabhu. So yeah. So a second question. and what was the reason for Ganga Mataji to manifest herself to come down to earth during this pastime? Was there a backstory why it happened at this particular point?
Oh, yeah, very nice. And I have heard and also spoken on this topic before, because there is, what is it called? It's a Ganga Puja Day or something like that. Sometimes that we celebrate and we discuss about Ganga Devi and glorify her in that way. And of course, with every pastime, there's always backstories. There's always something that's going on. And Ganga is actually I believe it's the Garbhodak Ocean. So it's the Garbhodak Ocean that comes through when Vāmanadeva pierces the veil of this material universe. Now, wait a minute. No, it's the causal ocean. So it's the Karna ocean because the universes are floating on the causal ocean, and inside of that is the Garbhodak ocean, on which Garbhodakshai Vishnu manifests and the Lord Brahma appears. So he pierced the veil, and the causal ocean waters came in, washed over his feet, and when they washed over his feet, then it becomes Charanamrita or Ganga Jal, and then it comes to the material world. And there is this devotee, and I'm forgetting his name now, and he had. Yes, there's an immense backstory. Where is that? Is that in this? That might be in this canto, actually, in the 8th canto. I'm forgetting this devotee's name, but basically, in order to save him, the Ganga comes down, and I think he had been burned to ashes by one sage or sadhu in that sense, and then the Ganga came and washed over and brought him back to life also. There's lots of around the. It is in this canto, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just quickly look. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I don't think I can give like a full, proper answer here without having some time to check on it. I think it's called the Descent of. No. Anyway, I'll have to look for it and then write to you. Maybe it's in the 9th canto.
Okay, no problem, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Are you okay to take one more question? I think Sadhu Mataji's got a hand up again. So
okay. I think it's Sagara Mahārāja. Yes. I think that's the pastime where it explains it. Yes, Mother.
Another verse that it says, anyone completely aware of the science of Krishna, regardless of his status in life, is a guru. So my question is, it means whoever who knows completely have knowledge, have been reading, studying, meditating, done everything that according Krishna consciousness could be guru. Have I understood this right? Regardless of if I'm Iranian, or if I'm Arab, or if I'm black or white or woman or man, it doesn't matter.
That's what it sounds like. Lord Chaitanya instructed everyone to become a guru, yes?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, now you've got me thinking, where is this? Anyway, I have to find it and share it somewhere else about the Ganga. Thank you very much, Dharmendra Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful session. Thank you, Jay, for being present. Nelly, wonderful to see you. I hope everyone is well. My respects to you and your family. And yeah, Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.